I have seen real magic. I feel I should say that before we begin, because everything that follows depends on you believing me. I have seen it done. I have felt it. And I can tell you with the certainty of someone who has watched it work and watched it fail, your authors have no idea what they are writing about. I promised you this conversation. My sister mentioned it, twice apparently. So here I am, on a cliff where the wind is doing most of the talking, ready to explain why your magic systems make no sense. Your authors treat magic as though it were engineering, a set of rules, inputs and outputs, a machine you learn to operate. Say the right words, move your hands in the correct pattern, channel energy from the proper source, and the spell works. Every time. Reliably. Like turning a key in a lock. That is not magic. That is a vending machine. Real magic is not reliable. It is not clean. It does not care about your rules or your diagrams or your carefully balanced power levels. It is older than language, older than the races that use it, and it has no interest in being understood. You do not master magic. You negotiate with it. And the negotiation is never entirely in your favor. Sanderson built one of the most elegant systems, allomancy, precise and beautiful in its logic. I respect the architecture, but reading it felt like watching someone build a cathedral out of mathematics. Impressive, and completely missing the part where the stones remember who quarried them. Rothfuss came closer. His sympathy, the idea that magic is about connections between things, felt like someone had almost remembered something true. But he still made it a classroom subject, still gave it tuition fees. Magic does not have tuition fees. It has costs. Those are not the same thing. Let me tell you about cost. When your authors write about the price of magic, they mean exhaustion. The wizard casts a powerful spell and needs to rest. Perhaps they lose consciousness. Perhaps their nose bleeds. It is dramatic and visual, and it misses the point entirely. The real cost of magic is not physical. It is personal. Every time you reach into that space, the space between what is and what could be, you leave something there. A memory, a certainty, a piece of the way you understood the world before you changed it. You come back different. Not damaged, but altered. Over centuries, those alterations accumulate. I have watched it happen. Not to myself. I was never gifted in that way, which is perhaps a mercy. But I have watched people I care about become gradually less recognizable. Not worse, just further away. Your authors skip this. They give their wizards a headache and call it a price. The real price is that the person who casts the spell is not entirely the same person who finishes it. And if you do it long enough, if you reach into that space often enough, you start to forget which version of yourself is the real one. I have seen mages who have lived 1,000 years and cannot tell you their own name with confidence. Not because they forgot it, because they are no longer sure which name is true. That is the cost of magic. Not a nosebleed, an identity. I want to tell you about someone who understands magic better than any academy. Linmythe. She is a half-elf, a ranger, and she does something that your textbooks say should not work. She does not cast spells. She does not study. She has never opened a grimoire. What she does is listen. She stands in a forest and she listens, and the forest answers. Not with words, with movement, with growth, with the slow turning of roots toward water that should not be there. I watched her coax a dying tree back to life. She put her hand on the bark and she was quiet for a very long time, and the tree chose to stay. No system explains that. No rules govern it. It was a conversation between two living things, and one of them decided to keep living. That is what magic looks like when it is real. Not a fireball, not a shield of light. A quiet agreement between things that should not be able to agree. And Linmythe pays for it. Not with exhaustion, with distance. She has spent more of her life in the wild than among people, and I sometimes wonder whether that is a choice or a consequence. Whether the forest gave her something and took something else in return. She would tell you it was worth it. I believe her. But I have noticed that she laughs less than she used to. Your authors would make her a druid. They would give her a spell list and a class description and a set of abilities that unlock at certain levels. And they would miss everything that makes her extraordinary, which is that she does not control anything. She asks, and sometimes the answer is yes. I need to tell you something I have not spoken about before. It concerns an orc. I was younger then, still young enough to believe my teachers knew everything worth knowing. They taught me that magic belonged to the elder races, that it required refinement, study, a certain quality of mind. I believed them. Then I saw an orc shaman do something impossible. I do not know his name. I was watching from a ridge during a conflict I would rather not describe. But I saw what he did. He placed his hands on the ground, and the earth answered him. Not gently. The ground shifted. Stones moved. The air changed temperature. There was a sound like the world was exhaling. My teachers said that kind of magic required decades of study. He did it with his hands in the dirt and a voice that sounded like it was arguing with something very old and very stubborn. And he won the argument. Everything I had been taught about who could do magic was wrong. Not slightly, fundamentally. Magic does not care about your bloodline or your education. It cares whether you are willing to listen to something that does not speak your language. Some of your authors have touched this truth. Tolkien kept magic mysterious. You never fully understand how Gandalf works, and that felt honest. Le Guin understood that names have power, that knowing the true name of a thing gives you a relationship with it. She understood something most of your authors have forgotten. But most of your authors want rules. They want magic to be fair and balanced and explicable. Your readers want to know how it works. The answer is that it does not work. It lives, and living things do not follow rules. I have been thinking about that shaman for a very long time. What he did changed how I understand magic more than any scroll in the Great Library. This archive has always been open to anyone willing to speak honestly, even those my kind considers enemies. That is not my rule. It is older than me. Perhaps one day he will come here and tell you himself. This archive would allow it. Magic is not a system. It is a relationship between you and something older than you. You do not control it. You ask. Sometimes it answers. The difference has nothing to do with how much you studied. If you want to write magic that feels true, stop building systems. Start building relationships. Let your characters be changed by it. That is what real magic does. It does not give you power. It gives you questions. I am Castien. Next time, I told you about an orc. I think it is time I told you about all of them. What would you ask an immortal? The council awaits in the comments.